Today we're going to talk about how to make and parse an API call using SwiftUI, and we will bring that data down from the internet and display it into our app. Let's go ahead and just dive right in. So today we're going to be using a website called jsonplaceholder.typocode.com, and I can throw that website in the description. We will be hitting their post endpoint today. And when we say hitting the post endpoint, that just means that we will be taking this data here, which as we can see is an array of various objects. These objects are of the post type, and we'll be using these to get the user ID, the ID, title, and body, and display all of that in our app. Now, looking at this data, we can kind of go ahead and tell this user ID is just an integer. It appears to always be a number, and it appears to always be a whole number, so we'll probably use an integer for those. The ID appears to also be an integer, so it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we'll use an integer for that type too. Title and body, they all appear to be strings, and so those two will also be strings. Alright, so let's jump into Xcode and get our project started. We'll start off by creating a new Xcode project, and we'll choose iOS and app, and then we will hit next. And this tutorial will be called make and parse and an API call. And we'll hit next, and we will create it. Wherever you want to save it is just fine. Alright, so this is again our blank Xcode project. Nothing special here, but we will go ahead and we will start laying out the same type of object that we have over here, this user ID field. So we will come over here to our project navigator, and we will create a new file and a new Swift file, and we're going to call this file post. And we're going to create a struct based on our post object. And this post object, like we said, is going to have a user ID, which is an integer. Look at that. Apple Intelligence figured out exactly what we needed already. So then we will have an ID, which is an integer, a title, which is a string, and a body, which is also a string. Now, this is pretty close to exactly what we need without a whole lot of effort. We'll also want to make this struct conform to codable. That does a couple things for us. It will allow us to automatically decode this from the JSON object that we get over here back to our Swift object that we use in our project. Another thing we will want to do is allow this to conform to identifiable, so that whenever we get ready to use this and display this data in a list, it will automatically populate, and it'll make our list API implementation very simple. Alright, so now with the post object done, let's go ahead and let's get into downloading this data. So we'll come back over into our project navigator, and we'll make a new file. And this will be just a regular Swift file called web service. And this is where we will create all of our network calls, which for right now is just the one network call for this tutorial. So we'll create a class of web service with a single function called download data. And it is in fact async and can throw. We also want this data to return a generic type. Now, don't panic about the generic types. They're actually fairly easy to deal with. Whenever we create this class, or whenever we create this function, we will tell it what type that is. And as long as it conforms to codable, which is what we've got there, then we should be set up and ready to go. So now what we're going to do is we are going to say, well, that's pretty close. except for we want to go to the post endpoint and we want to download the posts. Now we feel pretty safe that this URL will work since we've manually copied it and pasted it from the website. So we will go ahead on to our next step of taking that URL and trying to get a response back whenever we call it from our endpoint or from our app. So we will say let data and response Yep, this is exactly what we want. Whenever we will try to get the data from the URL that we've passed in here. So as you can see, we're not handling the errors right this second, but this is saying that it could fail whenever it tries to fetch our data from our URL. So let's wrap this with a do catch block to handle those errors correctly. And if this does in fact throw an error for any reason, we will just return nil for right now, and then that will be fine in our case. But now that we have the data, let's go ahead and try to decode it. So we will decode this data, and the reason why we need to decode the data is because we get back a JSON object from our URL, and we need to decode this back into something that Swift can actually understand. So that's why we're decoding this data. And so we will try to do our JSON decoder .decode, and this is type T from the data object that we've gotten right up here. Now, since we're not actually using the response in this iteration, we can just mark that with an underscore just to let Swift and the compiler know that we don't actually need this data. And assuming we are able to decode it, then we will return our decoded data. Now, going back to our view, we will come into here and create a view model. And so our view model, now our view model will have only one method, but we'll also have a variable. So we will say that we have a variable of post data, posts, that is an array of posts, and we will have our one method to fetch the post. Now this will use our web service, so let's go ahead and do that. Let downloaded posts be of and since we said that this data could be nil, then we just want the whole array to be nil, and that's just fine for right now. Be an array of post objects, and so we will use our web service to download the data. And this is an async call, and we are not awaiting, so let's await that network call. Perfect. And now that we have the downloaded data, we will assign our posts to these downloaded posts. If for some reason there was an error, something went wrong, something didn't work in our downloaded post function or object, we just want to return an empty array, which is, again, it is not the ultimate fortified solution, but it is a good enough solution to get us where we need to go. So now that we have our downloaded post returning back and being assigned to our object, let's actually let the view know that this is a observable object, so that as soon as the post value gets reassigned or updated, it'll actually update our view. So now we're ready to move into the view, and so we will instantiate our view model just like that, and we're ready to display this data in a list. Now right now we don't need any of the other views stuff that we got for free whenever we open the project, but we want to iterate over our array of posts, and we will display the post.title. Actually, let's put this in a VStack so all of these items get put together here. But we'll go ahead and display our entire post object. So we will say text of post.id, text of post.userID to let us know what user wrote it, and a text of our post body. All right. Now it's complaining about our text object here because we told our because our ID variable, if we go back over here, so our ID value is an integer and so is our user ID. Text don't accept numbers by default, but that's okay because we can come back to our view and tell our text object that this is in fact a number, and it should be happy with that. And just like we expected, it also let us know, hey, this user ID is a number too, and we can't display the text because it's not text, it's a number. So let's update our user ID object to also be a number. Now we should be fixed and ready to go. All right, so it's not displaying any data yet, but that's okay. We haven't told the view model to actually fetch the posts. So the easiest way to do that is with a task modifier. This task modifier is like running an onAppear modifier, just with a task built into it already. And so you kind of get all the nice to haves that you get with that. And so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to ask our view model to fetch our post. And this call is async and not marked with await, so we're going to await that call. And look at that. We've already got our data displaying over here in the preview very quickly. Let's see if we can clean this UI up just a little bit and see what we can do to make this better. So let's update our alignment to leading. Scoot all that over there. There we go. And now let's make our title bold so that we can tell the difference between the title and the body. And let's see if we can figure out a good way to do this user ID here. So one thing that we could do is we could update, instead of using the format with the number, we could go ahead and get rid of this format. And we could wrap our post ID like that. And we could say our ID is this. And we could do the same thing with our user ID. And we could say that this is a user ID. There we go. So our ID is 1 here, user ID is 1, ID is 2, ID is 3, perfect. That's exactly what we expected. Let's see if we can clean this up even just a little bit more. So for our body, let's add a couple of different modifiers. Let's say a foreground style of secondary, and let's go back and change the font to caption just to help that title stand out a little bit more. And as you can see, we've already gotten our list up and ready to go. If you'd like to learn more, please subscribe to the channel, like, follow, leave a comment. Just be nice about it. That's all I ask. And thanks, and have a great day.